This is a message for DC and Warner Brothers. At the time of this recording, it has been 8,650 days since we lost our beloved Batman Beyond, when his last episode aired on December 18th, 2001. All that you have been willing to give us since are scraps, and on those scraps we have survived the countless years of famine. A cameo here, a small appearance in a movie there, a crappy over-designed skin in a Batman video game. You've insulted us long enough. You've starved us long enough. We want more. We know that it's not about money. You can make all the money you want releasing Batman Beyond movies and video games. But you don't. You like the control, the feeling of power when we want something you have and you won't give it to us. Enough is enough.
I have been feeling pretty bitter ever since it was revealed that Warner Brothers turned down a pitch for a Batman Beyond animated movie in the style of Into the Spider-Verse. How perfect would that have been?
Perfect.
But alas, it was not meant to be. So today, I am going to show Warner Brothers how much money they are throwing away by not including Batman Beyond in any of their projects. Obviously, I will not be including any numbers in this calculation because I suck at math and finances, and I'm terrible with money. I think a Batman Beyond game was on all of our minds after we finished Batman Arkham Knight. We were thinking, where could they go next? Batman just faked his death. None of the Bat family members seem interested in taking up the mantle. Like, how are they going to continue the story? Like, I'm really interested to... Oh. Well, that just seemed disrespectful. Obviously, a Batman Beyond game would have been a way better decision to continue the story. So, let's pitch this game to Warner Brothers and see if they listen. They won't.
Please!
But let's start with something simple. Let's start with the world. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that the open world in this game should just be a classic Arkham-styled open world, but like 5 times bigger. This will be set in Neo-Gotham, a futuristic version of Gotham set in the year 2039, which the real world will not look like this in 2039. But there'll be super tall skyscrapers and flying cars, flying highways and just neon lights everywhere. It will honestly, I would like it to look a lot like kind of a combination of Ghost Runner and Cyberpunk 2077. I think that those two games meshed together would have the perfect atmosphere for Batman Beyond. I mean, you'd have like when you're up in the sky with the huge skyscrapers and everything looks pristine and just technologically advanced and gorgeous, and then the farther down you go into the city, you get into the slums and everything looks just a little more gross and dirty, but it still has that futuristic element to it with all the neon lighting and the signs, and it would be the perfect atmosphere for this game. Now, the next aspect of the world that I want to talk about, I would like this game to be in its own universe. As much as I love the Arkhamverse and the Arkham games, I think we have held on to that version of Batman for a little too long, and we now kind of have a sour taste in our mouth after what Rocksteady did in their latest venture. So I think setting this in a fresh new universe would be a really good decision because we could use the futuristic setting as a world-building tool to give us exposition and interesting insights on the universe and things that have happened in the past and kind of, where are they now with all of the DC heroes and villains? Because that's something that a lot of people have wondered about the Batman Beyond show and, that universe. What happened to everyone in the Batman Beyond show when they got to that point in the timeline? Now, in the DCAU, where Batman Beyond originated, they didn't want to explain all of that stuff because it wasn't Bruce Wayne's show, it was Terry's. They wanted him to have his own rogues gallery, his own side characters. They wanted it to be unique, and I respect that. But in this universe, we can kind of delve a little deeper into the DC mythos and history of this world. I think a really interesting way to deliver that exposition on the world and its history and the characters would actually be through Bruce Wayne. Because as we know, Bruce is Terry's guy in the chair. He's in Terry's ear while Terry's flying around, fighting crime. And it would be really interesting if in the game, Terry scans an object or, a location or a character, and Bruce chimes in and, he gives a little exposition dump, giving you information about that object and its history or the character. And I think it'd be really funny if, Terry picks up an old Riddler trophy and he scans it and Bruce is like, oh, I hate those things. We all know that the best thing about playing in an open world game is visiting iconic, recognizable locations and just being able to explore everything. Everyone likes to explore. So I think that they should add Wayne Manor and the Batcave as fully explorable locations in the open world, not through some fast travel, crap like Arkham Origins. Like, you should be able to drive up the long, winding road to Wayne Manor, explore the whole house, go into the Batcave, and the Batcave should be filled to the brim with trophies and trinkets and reminders of Bruce's history as the Caped Crusader. And these could be more, objects that Terry could scan and then Bruce could give more exposition on. It would just be such an interesting way to learn about the history of this specific universe, because it would be new and fresh. It wouldn't be the Arkhamverse. It would be its own thing. I think that would just be so amazing. Now, it's not going to be a Batman game unless we're doing Batman things. So let's talk about the gameplay next. Now, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that this game should stick very closely to the formula that we have been given with the Arkham series, because that formula is near perfect. But we should just dial it up to 11. Make it a lot more responsive and smooth, make everything a lot faster, because, this is a faster, smoother, futuristic Batman that we're talking about. But also, they should include some mechanics from Insomniac Spider-Man games, because Batman Beyond and Spider-Man have a lot more in common than you think. They can both stick to walls, and Batman Beyond can turn invisible, just like Miles. And so that's how I'm going to segue into how I think the stealth should function. Every Batman game has to include stealth in some capacity. And one of my few issues with Batman Arkham Knight was that the stealth felt a little too easy. A lot of the stealth encounters were outdoors, meaning if you were seen, somebody started shooting at you, you could just grapple up and fly away, try again later. And with how fast the grapple was in that game, you were out of there in like a millisecond. It was ridiculous. That's why I actually liked Arkham Asylum stealth just a little bit more. It was way less easy. You were in an enclosed space, really small area. It was really just about hiding and waiting for the right moment to strike. You had less tools at your disposal, and it was just about taking guys out one by one. So they shouldn't just take away gadgets to make the stealth more challenging. I think that the best way to make the stealth harder would be to tweak the areas that you're in. First off, take out all of the outdoor stealth sections. They don't make sense gameplay-wise. Put Batman Beyond indoors. Maybe he's sneaking into a corporate facility. And you know what? Put in some security cameras. I can't believe I'm actually praising Gotham Knights right now, but the security cameras were actually kind of interesting. They were new. They added something. So you got to avoid those. Maybe, in these indoor sections, there's an EMP pulse and it takes out your ability to go invisible. And the same thing with the other Arkham games. Like, some of them added a little bit of challenge by disabling your detective vision, or, putting bombs in the vents and blowing up the gargoyles. Maybe there's laser grids and stuff that are blocking your path. You have to go find the power box, whatever, take it out, turn off the lasers, and then you can continue taking guys out. Just add more challenge with the environment, not by taking away the tools that you have. Now we got to talk about the combat. The Batman Arkham series revolutionized the combat system in games with their rhythm-based free-flow combat. It's perfect, and so we shouldn't change it. The thing that I do want to change are some of the animations and some of the tactics that Batman uses while fighting. Terry McGinnis is not a trained martial artist. He is a street brawler. He gets into fights at school, in the street near his house. He's fighting with, local gangs. So I don't want him to be fighting exactly how Bruce Wayne does, but I think that his fighting style should be a little more messy. Maybe he's missing some counters and stuff, and I think that the combat should be more challenging. This way, throughout the game, you can actually learn more combat moves instead of just, mashing the button. Maybe there's different combos for, I don't know. You could have a move where you grab a guy's arm and you throw him over your shoulder, or, different takedowns. I think that the combat should be more manual and you should have more control over it. And there should be more of an emphasis on Terry learning how to be Batman. So learning these new martial arts moves from Bruce throughout the story would really help with that immersion. So instead of just being able to do the takedowns, I think throughout the story you should have to learn how to do them and then execute them with manual button inputs instead of just mashing the same button over and over again. It would make the combat more challenging, more immersive, and would make you feel like you're more in control. Now, as for the traversal part of the gameplay, it's mostly going to stay the same, with one new addition. You'll still have the glider, you'll have the grappling hook, but Batman Beyond has rocket boots. Now, I don't want to be able to fly infinitely. I think that the boot should be on a cooldown, so you boost for a little bit, then you're gliding, you use the grappling hook, and you mix all three to just have perfect, smooth, seamless traversal. But here's the thing, here's the funny thing. This traversal already exists in a game, and this game came out quite a while ago. I don't know if any of you have played Just Cause 3, but it's basically just this. Just take out the parachute and you have Batman Beyond traversal, and tweak the grappling hook a little bit. I mean, you see here, you know, you're boosting up a little bit, and then you're gliding, and then you're using the grappling hook to boost yourself more. This is pretty much perfect. There's a template already made for how to make Batman Beyond traversal. Let's just use it. I think that this kind of gameplay mechanic for traversal would just give you a lot more control, it would feel more manual, and it would be a lot more challenging. Plus, there's cars flying around in the sky in Neo-Gotham. Like, there's sky highways. So imagine you just grapple onto a car and you're kind of just hanging there following the car. And then you just, you know, drop out of that into a glide, you jet boost down to the ground, and you're weaving in between alleyways. It would be so cool. Now, story-wise and mission-wise, it would be super unrealistic for me to be able to just storyboard and write out a whole script for this thing, but I have thought of some missions and mission types that I think would be cool. So, Batman Beyond has a pretty decently sized rogues gallery, like of his own villains, and a few shared with Bruce, but there should be side missions for a ton of these villains. And one that I think would be really interesting is Ink. Ink is basically just a female purple Clayface. Like, she has the ability to morph her body to like this liquid form, and she can disguise herself as pretty much anything, but I guess purple. So one idea for a mission that I had was maybe Ink is, you know, hiding in people's apartments and she's assassinating specific targets because she is a hired killer, essentially. So maybe you get a tip that she's going to be in an apartment, you know, at this time. So you head to the apartment and you're looking around, and I don't know if you guys have ever played Prop Hunt on Call of Duty, but my idea for the mission is that you have a limited time to look around, you know, the apartment and like find where she's hiding. You know, she's disguised herself as a specific object or a piece of furniture, and you have to find her and, you know, neutralize her with like an electric battering or something before the timer runs out, because then if the time runs out, she jumps at you and, you know, you get a little game over screen. I think that that would be such a tense and nerve-wracking gameplay experience. Now, while a lot of people, including me, don't really like tailing missions where you have to follow, you know, a person of interest to a destination and like, you know, kind of, you know, eavesdrop on, you know, important intel that they're dropping, Batman Beyond has so many gadgets and cool options at his disposal. I think that this would be a really fun mechanic, especially in Neo-Gotham, where you have this huge city to explore. Like, the person could get in a car and, you know, fly away to a different spot. But also, the main reason why I thought of this idea is Batman has these microphones in the fingers of his gloves. And if he puts his fingers on like the surface of a wall, he can hear through that wall into the building. And so I just think that it would be a waste not to use this ability. I think he only uses it like twice in the show, but I always thought it was so cool as a kid, so I would like to see that. Another classic side mission that you have to have in any superhero game is the typical trippy hallucination level. Now, Batman Beyond does have a Scarecrow Mysterio type villain. It's a guy named Spellbinder. He was a high school counselor who would use his students to steal from their parents or their rich associates. So I think that the perfect way to execute a level like this for Batman Beyond is you have Spellbinder, you know, kind of flash Batman with his hallucination eyeball thing. It's kind of weird. But then Batman starts hallucinating like this wonderland or, you know, some fantastical area that he's in. And, you know, you're trying to navigate it. You're trying to follow Spellbinder so you can take him out. And let's say you're about to walk off the side of a cliff in real life. But you have Bruce on your comms. You know, Bruce is able to see what's going on through the lenses of the Batman Beyond suit. So what if in this level you have to listen for instructions from Bruce on how to navigate through the area and not die, and make your way to Spellbinder so you can take him out? Now, if you want to have a side mission that's kind of like randomly triggered, like random encounters with a villain just out in the open world, kind of like the Taskmaster or the Azrael ones in Arkham City, the perfect villain would be, I'm totally blanking on his name, but the Hunter guy, like the guy that's obviously just a Kraven the Hunter ripoff. He could just, you know, stalk you throughout the city and just randomly show up to challenge you to fights. Now, in terms of the main villain for this game, I think it would be awesome if we also pulled from the Batman Beyond comics and not just the animated show. But the main villain, I think, should be Damian Wayne. Now, in this universe, Damian Wayne quits being Robin after Batman retires. He doesn't take up the mantle, and instead he goes back to the League of Assassins and he takes over for his grandfather, and he becomes the head of the Demon. And so, maybe after Damian hears about this new Batman in Gotham, he gets a little jealous, and he comes back to reclaim his, rightful place at the Batman mantle. And maybe there'd be some kind of, cool confrontation between him and Bruce, because, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen the episode epilogue from Justice League Unlimited, Terry is technically Bruce's biological son. It's a long story, Cadmus and Amanda Waller was involved, but that could really make a rivalry between Terry and Damian just so interesting to watch and experience. Another interesting mission type that I just thought of now is like the typical civilian missions. Now, Bruce Wayne doesn't really have a personal life. Like, he's just Batman all the time. So, there's not really Bruce Wayne missions except for, the beginning of Arkham City and the Cold Heart DLC. But, it's not in the same way that you have Peter Parker missions in Spider-Man games. But Terry is different because he actually has a personal life. He goes to school, he has a girlfriend, he's got other friends. So I want to include Terry in the story, but I don't want the missions to just be boring walking simulators while you're just talking to people and receiving exposition. So I think that you should include Terry in the cool, combat mechanics of the game. And it would work because Terry does fight in the show. You could have a mission where you're flying around the city, you get a call from Dana, and you realize you're like, oh crap, I'm late for our date. So you head to the club where they usually hang out and you're dancing, but then maybe the Joker's gang, they break in and they just start causing chaos and they're robbing everyone. So then maybe you fight them off as Terry. That would be an interesting combat section because you don't have the bat suit, so you're lacking all of your gadgets, you probably have less health. I just think that would be really interesting. There are so many villains and missions and things that could happen in this game. And, you could have entire episodes from the animated series just condensed and given their own side missions. You could have the whole Mr. Freeze episode where he gets a new body happen in the game as a side mission. You can include Shriek, Blight, Gollum, the Royal Flush Gang. And, if you want criminals to fight throughout the open world, just throw in the Joker gang because, in the future, the Joker's long dead, he's gone, but there's a gang of just, basic thug criminals in the city that, essentially worship him and, they take on his iconography to just go and cause chaos throughout the city. There's so much to work with here, and I don't know why they're not interested in doing it. Now, let's talk about the Batmobile. I do think it should be included, but I think it should stay lower to the ground, in the streets of the city, because I think it would take away from the really cool traversal mechanics that we just talked about. If you're just getting in the Batmobile and you're soaring above all the skyscrapers going to your destination without really getting to take in the atmosphere of the world that you're in, if you just fly over all the streets instead of driving through them, you don't really get to appreciate the world building that's gone on there. And lastly, I think Terry should be the only playable character in this game. It should just be 100% focused on Batman Beyond, because we have all seen what happens when these games try to shove in 4 or 5 characters to play as. They all just get watered down and their movesets aren't as good or as refined or as full as they could be. I think that they should just stick with Terry, leave it at that, give him his own game, give him the attention that he deserves, because this character is very special to a lot of people. And we really are just, hungry for more Batman Beyond. We just want more Batman Beyond content. We're not just happy with, a comic every few years that ends after 12 issues. So Warner Brothers, hear my plea. Please do something with Batman Beyond, whether it be this game or a movie or a new TV show. We'll even accept an animated movie. Just give us something. Thank you. Anyway, that's going to be about it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate if you hit that like and subscribe button. If you have ideas for things you want me to talk about, things you want me to cover, you can drop them in the comments below. I really appreciate those of you who have been watching and commenting and just saying nice things. It just warms my heart. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.